Hello and welcome. You're watching Big Picture with me, Vishal, Dahiya, and today we're going to talk about cooperative-based economic development model. In fact, recently the government has taken the decision to create a new ministry of cooperation, which is going to strengthen the cooperative movement. In fact, this administrative structure was proposed in the union budget earlier this year, and the new ministry is expected to streamline the processes for the cooperatives, and it will also realize the vision of Sahkar, say Samriddhi. Now, the cooperative-based economic development model is considered to be very relevant for India. In the next half an hour, we'll try and analyze and understand all aspects of this particular model, and also as to how the creation of this new ministry is going to help this model and this cooperative movement therein. So let me first introduce the guests, the experts who are with us today. And we have Professor Charan Singh, the CEO of EGROW Foundation, with us. We're also joined by Mr. Satish Marathe, founder member of Sahkar, Bharati. Welcome, both of you gentlemen. And let me begin with you, Mr. Marathe. Let's start by understanding a bit more about the cooperative movement in India, the journey so far.
We have about 8.5 lakh cooperative credit societies in the country, with a total membership exceeding 28 crores. And then there are about 55 types of cooperative societies that function in our country. The major number is from 7 or 8 categories. The first one I would say is the primary milk cooperative societies, which number more than 1,50,000 in the country. Then we have 95,000 primary agricultural cooperative credit society, and they function predominantly. These two first categories are almost accounting to 2.5 lakhs, cover 100% villages and almost 75% of our rural population.
Okay.
Then we have a large number of credit cooperative societies. There are 4 types of credit cooperative societies. The first is a credit cooperative society which functions in an urban area. The second is a category which functions in rural areas but does not extend agricultural credit. The third one category is of workers and employees in various factories and commercial establishments come together to meet pool their resources and meet their credit requirements. That is the third type of society. And then we have what we call as women cooperative credit societies, also in a big number. Together, all these 4 categories, we have about a lakh of societies in the country. Then we have fisheries cooperative societies. The number is rather small for a large coastline and with thousands of water bodies across the country. The functional fisheries cooperative societies today are numbering about 15,000.
Okay.
Another number is the Weavers Cooperative Credit Society. They function in various parts of the country. Uttar Pradesh, Telangana, parts of Andhra Pradesh, parts of Maharashtra, some in our Orissa, Bengal, but that's not an all India phenomenon. But that number is also around 35,000. Apart from these, we have housing cooperative societies all over the country, and the number of plus 3 lakh societies today.
Okay.
This is the broad picture. And then on the financial side, we have 3 types of banks. First is the primary urban cooperative banks, which are fully regulated by the Reserve Bank of India. They number about 1,550. Then we have about 700 odd districts across the country, We just have today about 300 district central cooperative banks,
Okay.
and each state, not necessarily each union territory, but each state has an apex cooperative bank in the three-tier structure. The primary structure in this
Okay.
is the primary agricultural
Okay,
cooperative society.
that looks like,
This is
Mr. Marathe,
network.
quite an elaborate cooperative structure which exists there in the country, as you're pointing out, and a multi-layered one as well. And the sheer number of people involved with this particular structure is also really, really huge. Let me bring in Professor Charan Singh here, before I come back to you, Mr. Marathe. And Professor Charan Singh, if you have to understand the entire journey, entire concept of this cooperative-based economic development model, how would you assess its success so far and the challenges so far as well, and the place where we stand today in vis-a-vis the cooperative movement?
So one thing is very clear, as Professor Marathe mentioned and explained in detail, that the cooperative movement in our country is really deep ingrained. Nearly 28 crore people are involved in some cooperative or the other. And the way Mr. Marathe explained, the cooperatives are ranging from financial institutions to non-financial institutions. So therefore, the cooperative movement is there very much deep into the Indian mentality and Indian psyche. Now, what happens in the cooperative movement? There is a sense of common responsibility, which I think is very important. Now, when did the cooperative movement actually start in our country? Its origin can be traced to 1904, and from 1904 it developed, but around 1950 in our country, it became really extensive. If you look at the most well-known cooperative structure, the Amul, it started around 1946. And since then, if you see the way it has beautifully panned out and provided employment and provided economic growth to the people who have been associated with it, it clearly shows that this is an institution through which development can take. Now, why is it so important that cooperatives provide good, reliable, robust opportunities for growth? Because I think the most important thing is collective decision making. And once you do a collective decision, then you all own the responsibility. As Mr. Marathe was explaining, the primary agriculture cooperative institutions, there are more than, I think, 95,000. They're across the country. And I have had an account in one of those. And I realized how beautifully, how responsible, how round the clock they provide you service. Now, there are challenges, of course. As you see, the commercial banks, they're so well regulated. There's a regulator they're at the Reserve Bank. And if they are offering anything in the stock market, they have to also follow the SEBI regulations. The board is very strong. The board is also an expert board, brings in various things and understands risk assessment, risk management. That's the most important thing these days. And therefore, the function of a commercial bank is very reliable.
Okay.
Now, when it comes to cooperative societies, you asked me if there is a challenge. I do feel there is a challenge. And one of the challenges, the board structure. Now, it is not something new that I'm telling you. This has been also flagged earlier, and efforts have been made so that the board structure is more representative, more responsible, as well as people on the board are more accountable, which I think is the right step. As you know, because it is so extensive, the cooperative movement, there can always be challenges and different types of challenges. There can be different states, different sectors that can pose a challenge. But I think this is the way forward. Okay. According to me, this ministry formation is going to really help the cooperative movement further.
Okay. We'll come to that part as well, Professor Charan Singh, as to how the ministry will help. But let me first bring in Mr. Marathe here on this challenges and opportunity part here, Mr. Marathe. If you to look at, the cooperative-based economic development model, which we're talking about here, and the focus here is the cooperative movement, those, cooperative societies, in various forms at various levels which exist right now. According to you, what are the key challenges for this kind of economic model as of now, and the opportunities here as well?
See, there are three or four types of major challenges. First, I will deal with the rural sector, particularly the PACs, the district central cooperative banks, and the state cooperative banks. This is the three-tier structure for credit delivery in rural sector. Now, if you go through the data published by the Planning Commission or Niti Aayog for the last few years, you will realize that today the income pattern has completely changed in the rural sector. The income coming from the farm sector is just 35%, and 65% income generated in rural areas is from non-farm sector. Now, these societies, whether it is a district central cooperative bank or the state cooperative bank or the PACs, they now need a completely new business model than what is prevailing today. This is a model which was prepared perhaps 50 years back. Some concessions, some relaxations have come over a period of time, but they are neither adequate nor uniform, nor do they give enough freedom to the financial institutions to support the activity that is really happening in the rural areas. So, new business models is what is number one that is necessary.
Okay.
The second biggest challenge is we have, for example, as a country, we are the largest milk producer in the world today. And gone are the days when we used to import the milk powder for our local consumption when liquid milk was not available. But then if you see the growth of the dairy sector, it is very heterogeneous. It is simply speaking on the Western India, it's only whole of Central India, North India, and the Northeast does not really contribute substantially in the milk procurement and milk production activities in the country. So we need to take a special effort in this regard because the dairy sector contributes maximum income to the rural population.
Indeed.
Once there is a proper system. That's why I would say that this is the second challenge we have. We need policies, we need ancillary supportive policies also for that. Simply promoting milk cooperatives will not be enough. We need veterinary services with it. We need huge number of plants to manufacture animal feed and provide them at affordable rates.
Entire ecosystem will have to be put in place.
Is available to us. These are some of the major challenges. And the third point which I would like to mention, our laws, particularly the state cooperative laws, are totally out of tune with the current socio-economic situation. They need to be upgraded. They need to be rewritten in certain parts. For example, if you see some of the acts, they are simply copy-paste things you may find which was originally taken in 1904 also, some of them. So we need to rewrite the cooperative laws. And the last point, which is most important, is we should empower the cooperatives to raise capital for their working capital needs and for development.
Okay.
So these are the issues that we need for the cooperative sector to be addressed.
Okay, and those are quite important and relevant, points there which you mentioned, Mr. Marathe. Professor Charan Singh, I'd like to bring you back in here. And in your earlier response, you were speaking about how the creation of a new ministry is a good way forward. Now, the question here is that how do you think the creation of this Ministry of Cooperation will help the cooperative sector and this entire concept of cooperative-based economic development? Several challenges which have been mentioned by Mr. Marathe, they will have to be tackled.
Yes, I agree with you. There are challenges. In addition to the four which Mr. Marathe mentioned, because I've been a banker, career banker, and been dealing with in different capacities, both at the Reserve Bank and at the commercial banks, I also have a fear that sometimes the cooperatives, especially the banks, can get politically very active. And therefore, politicization of the cooperative banks is something very scary. So that is one. The other is, where do you get the experts to retain the cooperative institutions? Most of them, as Mr. Marathe also repeatedly mentioned, that dairy is one very good example of cooperatives, and Amul is certainly one of the best. But then you have to retain the tail end. Now, there are numerous cooperatives in the country. How do you train them? How do you retain the tail end? So that's still another challenge. Now, once the cooperative ministry is there, the focus is very clear that they are here to develop the cooperative institutions. Now, once we appreciate the fact that the cooperatives are playing a very prominent role in the rural areas, and they should be playing. We know about the milk cooperatives, but there can be many other cooperatives which can become active. There can be a weavers cooperative, there can be handicrafts cooperative, and once we have these cooperatives which are very, very active, you can really double the farmer's income and double the rural sector economy. So I think the very purpose, and this is not just an immediate reaction, it has its seeds in the budget, but it also has its seeds earlier when the Prime Minister had said he wants to double the farmer's income. At that point of time, there were different thoughts. How is he going to do it? And is it simply going to be raising the minimum support price? Is he going to bring in more crops, better seeds? What is the strategy that he is going to adopt? And I think this is part of that bigger strategy, which he has been thinking over a period of time, that he needs to bring something into the rural sector which provides competitive wages, proper profits to the people engaged in various economic activities. As I mentioned, the Amul, the milk cooperatives are very well known, but we could have cooperatives in many more sectors. So I think this ministry is going to identify, encourage such sectors, bring in fresh sectors, help. Like Amul became a success because it could collect the milk and then market it at an appropriate price. And everybody down in the value chain got something, but that's not true for many other cooperatives. And there are many other sectors waiting to be weaved into the cooperative system so that down the value chain, everybody gets a competitive wage and a competitive price for their products. So the ministry is going to focus on that. And that is how I visualize that the rural sector is going to really benefit. The last point I want to make here is, in the economic growth story of India, it just can't be dependent on urban and industrialization.
Indeed.
The agriculture sector will continue to play a prominent role. The rural sector is nearly 66% of the population even today is in the rural sector. Most of them are doing sometimes rain-fed activity is quite prominent, but then handicrafts and weaving, and these are also very prominent. And these, I think, are not getting the market for itself. So therefore, as Amul was able to produce a market for itself and got replicated at other places, this ministry will identify certain sectors and help them create a market which will then fetch them the right price.
Okay.
So this is where I think economic growth and development is going to take place, at least get encouraged by the new ministry.
Okay, okay. Indeed, rural sector and the agriculture sector have to be the key focus areas there. Mr. Marathe, you earlier spoke about the challenges and listed quite a few, which are very important, relevant ones as well. From your perspective, the focus of the new Ministry of Cooperation, where should be the focus? What should be the key areas where initially the ministry will have to work, put in place, the policy framework there as well, and identify those challenges which you're pointing out and then work on solutions? What should be done from day one?
There are three different streams that we will have to follow. That's how I look at it. Firstly, if we talk of rural India, and if we have to double the farmer's income, the road ahead is only through processing of agricultural produce. processing of fruits, food processing industry has to grow. Netherlands is such a tiny country, yet it processes more agricultural produce than what even the United States in totality produce. In India, there is nothing like processing. The total amount of processing of our agricultural produce is just restricted to 4 or 5 items. And if we start the processing activity, the shelf life will automatically increase. The value realization when the market needs is going to be more, and eventually the farmers would benefit.
Okay.
So agro processing has to focus number one in the rural sector. Then in the urban sector, there are 2 areas where we need to concentrate. First is mass housing through cooperative societies. Our people in urban areas, they live in slums because we have not planned the development of the villages, the cities. We need to concentrate on creation of affordable houses, and cooperatives can play a big role in it. In Mumbai, every other day, new housing societies come up across the city. Yet, a very large population of Mumbai is still in hutments. So, housing is one area where we need to concentrate in the urban areas. The second area is consumer cooperatives. Totally, we have lost. There are no consumer cooperatives worth the name in our country today. Few, of course, are there. Across the country, you will find some name here and there. But we need to strengthen consumer cooperatives, not only to ensure proper supply of essential items, but it can act as a big balancing center when inflation is high. When traders generally take the consumers for a ride by profiteering, the consumer societies can play a very important role by following fair practices, and that is possible.
Okay.
So that is another area. Okay. And now one more critical area I would like to say and then stop. Ease of doing business norms are being applied to all sorts of commercial, manufacturing and services activity. Now basically, cooperatives are economic activities, and we need the same support by extending ease of doing business norms to all cooperatives so that they are able to function without obstructions. And that is the biggest need of the hour today. The cooperatives have no access to capital. They depend only on the shareholders. In our country, the capital is scarce. We need to create new models. We need to revamp our cooperative laws, empower the cooperatives to form their SPVs, promote companies under Companies Act, which are fully owned by the cooperatives,
Okay.
so that they can tap the capital market and deploy the funds in the cooperative sector, so that the cooperative sector does not depend only on government or only on borrowing. What is necessary is for a cooperative to be successful is to have adequate capital, adequate risk capital, I would say,
Indeed.
so that the cost of operations will also go down. So empowering the cooperatives to raise capital is the most important thing that the new ministry should tackle. That's what they had announced before the budget session.
Okay. Okay, indeed, those are really relevant points and suggestions coming in from you there, Mr. Marathe, and Professor Charan Singh as well. Quite a lot of views in terms of not only identifying challenges, but also finding out opportunities and the way this new administrative setup in the form of Ministry of Cooperation can go ahead and tackle those challenges. Thank you so much, Professor Charan Singh and Mr. Satish Marathe, for sharing your views and inputs with us and our viewers. We'll come back again with a different topic. Till then, keep watching.